Welcome to Things You Don't Know. In this episode, we will take a look at a topic most people have heard about, yet know almost nothing about. Now, Patrick Ryan, who has joined our team efforts and has helped in presenting other topics, joins us to talk about the history of adaptive sports and to share some of his own experiences too. Now, many different sports are covered in Special Olympics and other adaptive sports leagues. Still, this episode is going to focus mainly on basketball, mostly because that's what Patrick participates in and knows the most about.
I recently started researching for this podcast about how the Special Olympics came about and how this amazing and helpful organization eventually morphed into many different sports, including basketball. Adaptive sports, specifically Special Olympics, cover various sports and types of participation on different levels. Adaptive sports, also called para sports, have rules and equipment modifications that allow anyone to participate, especially those with some type of disability. People with physical or visual impairments participate in adaptive sports that could one day lead to the Paralympics. Adaptive sports for some people with cognitive impairments led to the Special Olympics.
I was very intrigued to learn there are two types of adaptive sports. Dr. Sherry Blowett, a Paralympic wheelchair racer herself, as well as an American physician, had some information on that. They're sports with the same general rules and timing as a sport for able-bodied competitors, but they're separate because they make allowances for special equipment, such as using a wheelchair. Whereas more inclusive sports, such as track and field or swimming, can be held at the same events as those for more able-bodied athletes, but they have unique divisions or unique races for people with what we call exceptionalities.
The list of sports at the 2024 Summer Paralympics is a combination of events seen in the Summer Olympics, including cycling, swimming, and triathlon. I just think that's wonderful and amazing, I have to say. And those unique to the Paralympics, such as boccia and goalball and wheelchair rugby, I think that's really interesting too. They get pretty rough with some of those things too. It's not like a cakewalk, as they say. They have to put out some effort, and it's really cool. I've watched some of those games. Adaptions for adaptive sports take on a lot of different forms. For example, adaptive cycling for people without the use of their legs features bikes that can be pedaled by hand. Holy mackerel, that seems like hard stuff to me. In adaptive equestrian events, riders may use a riding crop to keep their horses moving instead of applying pressure with their legs, which actually is not so much of a break from normative kind of things. Some adaptive sports feature a range of classifications. For example, in adaptive swimming, class S9 is for athletes with joint restrictions in one leg or double below the knee amputations. Can imagine trying to swim in that sort of situation. Class S10 is for swimmers with minimal impairment, such as the loss of a hand or a hip joint restriction.
I can tell you, friends, I've used one of those bikes that can be maneuvered with a hand, not for competition, but for exercise. And they are a lot of fun, but a big challenge. Where did this all come from? Now, in 1958, Dr. James and Oliver of the UK conducted very pioneering research on the value of exercise for people with exceptionalities. And his work included a groundbreaking study showing that physical exercise, as well as other activities for children with intellectual disabilities, had positive effects that carried over into the classroom. This was written in the British Journal of Educational Psychology in June 1958, and the article was called "The Effects of Physical Conditioning Exercises and Activities on the Mental Characteristics of," excuse the anachronistic phrasing, "educationally subnormal boys." In 1964, Dr. Oliver served as a consultant to the famous Camp Shriver.
Before the Special Olympics was created, the Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. Foundation, JPK Jr. Foundation, was founded in 1946 to focus on how society cares for people with intellectual disabilities, which was then known as mental retardation, a term which today is seen as insulting. It became the first foundation to focus on these efforts. In 1947, Eunice Kennedy became a trustee of this foundation. The JPK Jr. Foundation advocated for research into the causes of varying exceptionalities, which has impacted me as a person with autism. Having definite proof of the causes of autism would be a great advancement. In 1957, Eunice Kennedy Shriver took over the foundation, which has played a vital role in the research of varying exceptionalities. In 1958, Eunice and her husband, Sergeant Shriver, visited institutions for people with special needs to find facts about those particular needs and to make some progress in giving the help that children and adults with varying exceptionalities needed. Without these facts, I would not have had the help I needed.
Indeed. And just a brief dumpster dive here. This notion of retardation and subpar mental abilities, in my opinion, it's a load of crap. People with autism or most other things have areas in which they are great. They run the complete spectrum. Yeah, some of them may be genius. Some of them may be average. Some of them may be somewhat below average on some test. But I agree that it's insulting to say, oh, they're retarded. Bull crap. I don't buy it. Anyhow, getting back here, sorry, this is something I feel really strongly about. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy made intellectual disabilities a priority of his administration, giving the federal government its first ever involvement in providing opportunities for people with intellectual varying exceptionalities. During that same year, JFK's healthcare transition team, working with his sister, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, recommended the creation of the National Institute for Child Health and Human Development. Later that same year, President Kennedy created the President's Panel on Mental Retardation, making him the first president to codify a national effort to ensure inclusion and acceptance for persons with intellectual differences or difficulties.
In the summer of 1960, a woman living in Bethesda, Maryland, called Eunice Shriver to tell her she was struggling to find a camp for her child with an intellectual disability. The child, sadly, in those days, wouldn't have been accepted into a mainstream camp. At that time, the school system did not know how to help students with varying exceptionalities, something both of you and I and Patrick have experienced in our school days when we were younger, when some school systems refused to help specific students. After that, another woman told Mrs. Shriver she had the same issue about finding a camp for her child. As a result, Eunice started Camp Shriver at her Maryland farm. Over the years, several other Camp Shrivers have been started. For example, in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Colorado, Coral Gables, Florida, where our good friend Leslie Finelli, who's been on this podcast, lives, and St. Peters, Missouri.
Yeah. And what a wonderful thing. There have been studies evaluating the effectiveness of the camps in terms of improved skill levels and social skills. They've been shown that the participants show a distinct improvement in the participating campers. Interestingly enough, the campers' evaluations of other campers did not change much from the start of the camp to the end. For example, campers did not change who they thought were friends from the beginning to the end of the camp. This suggests that these campers had a preset opinion that remained stable. I wonder, but have not found data to support the idea, that although campers' evaluation of each other did not change, their positivity towards others improved. And their willingness to share that positive evaluation to people outside the groups also improved. I also suspect, in fact, pretty much know, that increased physical activity always just has very positive effects. And I don't care if it's a person with, some sort of exceptionality or even physical problems. Doing something, moving, it affects your entire being. There is a very real mind body connection.
To make her camp idea work, Eunice asked special schools in her area to give her the names of children with special needs who might be interested in the camp. Eunice Shriver recruited high school and college students to be counselors at the camp. Counselors had to meet several requirements, including being between the ages of 18 and 23, having Special Olympics education, and successfully completing a training program with the Camp Shriver people. Everyone, except Eunice, was surprised that the camp was successful. An aspect of Camp Shriver was the lesson that children with varying exceptionalities should have interaction with neurotypical children. When I have interacted with typical peers, it has always felt wonderful to be included in that group. The camp continued to grow over the next few years, eventually reaching 100 campers, which led to the need for more counselors.
Yeah. And, Patrick, that's a really important point. If you are always around people with, I don't care what it is, if you're always around sick people, you feel more sick. If you're always around people that, I don't know, have pneumonia, uh, studies have shown you're more likely to get pneumonia. If you're around people who, hate black people, you're more likely to sway in that direction too. The same thing is true for people with any kind of exceptionalities. You need to have interaction with neurotypical other people, people with a lot of different ideas.
You're quite correct, Dr. Weaver. I know in my younger days, being a little older than you, Patrick, it was thought that we were best in separate environments. And God bless my mother and my late grandparents for moving heaven and earth to see that I got a typical education and being my financial and emotional support all the way through this doctorate program. Short after creating the camp, Eunice revealed a foundational cause for her interest in this area. When she revealed she had a sister, Rosemary, who had an intellectual disability. The Kennedys had covered up this sad fact for many years. Rosemary was institutionalized at age 23 after she had some other problems and was given a lobotomy because the surgery left her severely impaired. Fortunately, Eunice used this tragedy to establish Camp Shriver and expand the idea beyond just giving a wonderful camp experience to people with intellectual exceptionalities. The movement for athletic competitions among people who had been relegated to the sidelines in life would transform the nation's attitudes in so many areas.
Oh, you bet your bippy. You're right. In 1966, Eunice Kennedy Shriver proposed, quote, nationwide sports contests, unquote, between teams of young people with intellectual exceptionalities. This physical training improved the learning skills of people with varying exceptionalities. It's just a fact. In 1967, Camp Shriver type day camps started providing summer activities. On March 29th, 1968, Eunice and the Chicago Park District held a news conference to plan the first Olympic style games for children with special needs. On August the 2nd, 1968, the Special Olympics was officially incorporated.
Special Olympics has something enjoyable called unified sports, which joins people with and without intellectual disabilities on the same team. I am among the many participants throughout the country through soccer in the fall and basketball in the winter. I am in a club in school called Play Unified, which works with students with varying exceptionalities from a nearby special education school called ECLC, where we do all sorts of things with them, including unified sports like basketball. The sports that Play Unified does, including basketball, have all recently been recognized under the Special Olympics umbrella. Many other schools, besides Chatham, do unified sports programs where they face other schools in games, such as basketball. The coach of my unified basketball team is Kelsey Ealer, but our team calls her Coach K. Before she became coach for our team, she already had experience. She coached a youth basketball league in Pennsylvania several years ago. She also played basketball in her freshman and sophomore years of high school, but continued to go to games after quitting. Going to games was one of her favorite things to do during her junior and senior high school years. Coach K already had experience working with individuals with varying exceptionalities before becoming our coach. She is a full-time paraprofessional working one-on-one with a special needs student at an elementary school in Chatham, which she has done since last year. We have games once or twice a week in the winter. For games, we face other NJ schools that do unified sports. They are either home games or away games. We have practices once or twice a week. Our coach always sends a weekly email about games and practice signs. She signs emails by saying, "Hoop on" for motivation.
He sounds like a really amazing person. Basketball itself has an interesting backstory of how the game was created. Basketball started at Springfield College in the winter of 1891-92. It was then known as the International YMCA Training School in Springfield, Massachusetts. It was started by a man named James Naismith, the instructor of a fitness class at the college. Naismith was one of the first people to study physical education at Springfield College. That was a relatively unknown academic discipline. He wanted to create a game that could be played during the winter and also to motivate and inspire young men through recreational sports. Dr. Naismith was asked to teach a physical education class and create an easy and enjoyable game for a class activity. The game had to have several players at once, be playable indoors, and provide exercise for the players. The game came to be known as basketball, which became an adaptation of rugby with passing. English-style rugby with a jump ball, and also had elements of lacrosse through the use of a goal, and soccer with the shape and size of the ball. In making the first ever basketball game, Naismith asked the school janitor for two 18-inch square boxes to use as goal. He was given two peach baskets, which he nailed to the lower rail of the gym, one on each end to use for the game. Once Naismith tossed the ball during the next gym class where the players lined up, basketball was officially created. The game, which hasn't changed much since it was created, was successful immediately, and word of it spread very quickly.
As a fan and participant, basketball impacts my social life during the season. I don't follow the NBA, but I enjoy attending as many varsity home games as possible for both the Chatham boys and girls. I will watch NCAA basketball during March Madness, but I don't follow it much other than that, except watching a little bit of Rutgers Scarlet Knights men's basketball every now and then, as my mom went to Rutgers. Socially, basketball impacts me during games I go to. If I see people I know at games, I sit with them. If I don't see anyone I know, I sit with and meet new people for the first time. After varsity games, if I see a player walking by me, I always tell them what a good job they did, which they seem to really appreciate. Additionally, I play unified basketball, which includes both students from ECLC and Chatham High School. We have both home games and away games. I often socialize with my teammates while practicing together. During games, I cheer for my teammates who are in the game when it isn't my turn. When I am on the bus on the way to away games, I like to talk with my teammates and coach.
That's got to be a great experience for you. I'm so glad that you're doing it.
Truly is.
Yeah, a lot of fun too, isn't it?
Yep.
And working with people from all along the spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And learning from every one of them, no matter what level they're at. You learn something, right?
Yes.
That's wonderful. It's so good. I'm proud of you. I wish you had a film of one of your games. I'd love to see it. Getting back here, the rules of unified basketball are different from Special Olympics basketball. Just like in the NBA, high school, and college level, unified basketball players have to wear home and away uniforms. The ball is orange, just like in other instances, with it also being the same size and as higher level basketball. In unified basketball, you don't have to dribble around cones during actual games. While in regular Special Olympics basketball, you do dribble around the cones. Each player plays an equal amount of time in games rather than just having certain bench players. There's a lot of flexibility as players are not assigned certain positions and they're not told they're playing a position. Unified basketball players consist of those with and without varying exceptionalities. So anyone can enjoy it, and spectators also enjoy it. The game still has 4 quarters with 8 minutes per quarter, with a halftime as well. As in all team sports, virtually all of them, it also has referees, and they're supposed to be neutral, just like in any other professional sports or what have you. It is at a similar pace to other levels, and the amount of points scored per basket depends on the league. The main purpose of unified sports is to promote inclusion amongst people with varying exceptionalities as they join those without varying exceptionalities or recognized varying exceptionalities on a sports team. It's my contention that everybody has some kind of difference. We are all individuals. So yeah, it's a great thing. And as I said, I and Patrick agreed that you learn from people. Don't care who it is, you can learn from them. I remember very well as a young man. I was 15, so I guess I wasn't that young. Working with Jean Piaget, whom some of you will recognize as a world famous psychologist and the really the father of looking at intellectual development, if you will. And I remember asking him one day why he spent so much time with these children. Now, they didn't have very exceptionalities. He was interested in them and he cared. And what he said to me, he turned to me and he said, if you get to the point where you think you can't learn from a child or from anyone else, that there's nothing you can learn from them, you've taken the first step towards absolute ignorance and stupidity. I've remembered that. And it's true, by the way. Special Olympics basketball follows modified rules to ensure inclusivity, fairness, and a fun experience for all the athletes. Game structure, rules, and competition levels are designed to accommodate a really wide range of ability skills.
Teams are grouped into divisions based on skill level to promote fair competition. Rules and methodologies vary depending on the type, as we've said, of adaptive basketball which is being played. Within the Special Olympics, there are three different types of play: traditional 5-on-5 basketball, unified basketball, which we've explained before, and 3-on-3 half-court basketball. Most unified teams operate under the following rules. As we said, games follow standard basketball rules with modifications for accessibility. Games are typically consist of two halves, each 12 minutes per half, with a running clock. The clock only stops for timeouts and free throws. There are also different types of teams. Traditional teams, athletes with intellectual exceptionalities compete, and then unified teams, as Patrick told us, athletes with and without intellectual exceptionalities work and learn and play together.
Yeah, some specifications of equipment and scoring are the same as NBA basketball. Others are modified. Official men's size 29.5 inches, or women's/youth size like 28.5, a little smaller, based on division. Basket height is standard 10 feet, but lower baskets may be used in some divisions. Some of the scoring in unified basketball is different. Field goals are worth 2 points. Three-pointers outside the arc are worth 3 points. And free throws, like from the line, are 1 point, which is very similar.
Double dribble and traveling rules can be modified depending on the division. Some divisions allow extra steps or dribbles to help players succeed. Personal fouls are called, and free throws are awarded as in standard basketball. A team enters the bonus one-on-one free throws after 5 teams fouls per half. Technical fouls can be assessed for unsportsmanlike conduct. Some divisions allow only man-to-man defense, no zone defense. In certain levels, double teaming may be restricted to keep the game balanced.
As we said, other rules are that in unified teams, there must constantly be a mix of athletes with and without disabilities. No single player, or especially two partners, should dominate play. If a game is tied, a short overtime period of between 2 to 3 minutes is played. 3-on-3 basketball has its own set of rules. It is played on a half court with many modified rules. The first team to reach 20 points, or the team leading after 20 minutes, if neither team does, wins.
The goal of Special Olympics basketball is to provide an enjoyable and competitive experience while ensuring that all athletes can participate and develop their skills. Patrick, I wonder when you're playing, do you play enough so that you actually sweat a little bit?
I sometimes do sweat. It really depends on certain things, like maybe how hot the gym is,
Yeah.
or just how quick I've been running.
Yeah, you get a good workout though.
Yes.
Okay. Yay raw Patrick. That is good stuff.
Absolutely. As I was thinking about all this, it seems to me that these kind of sports did something wonderful for you, Patrick. And I got the same function and experience from being in the Scout movement, rising to Eagle Scout, and working with my high school Model Wind. It gave you an opportunity to interact with people, socialize, expand your interests, and just be active both physically and mentally. That's as Dr. Weaver said, an amazing thing.
That is quite true, Dr. Deneen. I like to stay active. We each have to find our own way, but having something I like to do helps me in many ways.
Well said. Well said. Putting together this information about a very significant program has been very interesting to me and hopefully to our listeners too. I just want to add that, in my opinion, Special Olympics and adaptive sports programs also serve an even larger purpose. Many neurotypical and able bodied people, consciously or unconsciously, see people with exceptionalities as being less than, read that in quote, normal people, less than normal people. I say BS. Special Olympics and adaptive sports may help correct that stupid notion and show that all people are capable of contributing in meaningful ways to society and deserve the right to pursue whatever goals they may have. Now, look, I'm not suggesting that everyone can become a world class scientist, but I insist that world class scientists can learn from children or people with intellectual challenges, and that society is better when that happens.
I am glad to have had the opportunity to bring this information to others and look forward to doing more episodes. Bye for now.
If I could just very briefly echo what you've said, Dr. Weaver, you're absolutely right. One of my dear friends, a young woman with cerebral palsy named Sarah Bogdan, became a medical doctor. I got my doctorate. Another friend of mine is a lawyer. And at the time we began, society had pity at best and a kind of benign neglect otherwise. And we were all blessed with loving and wonderful families. My dear friend, Dr. Andrew Kramer, physical therapist, also mentioned on a podcast here, he used to say, your ultimate limitation is in the mind. And we have difficulties, physical and otherwise, but we don't owe the world an apology for being alive. And I think we've been blessed with some wonderful experiences. And I think programs like this and some of the things I did, they let you hold your head up in the world with dignity and pride. And I found a great deal of joy in this podcast and working with you and working with Patrick and some of our other compatriots. And I just wanted to say very briefly how much I've been thankful that I've been able to participate, to share what I know, and to learn from all of you. So, everyone, please give us a like and a comment, and we'll see you again soon.
Hey, uh, I'll say once again, thank you, Patrick. Did a great job, and we're going to keep you busy.
You sure are.
I like having you on the podcast with
So
us.
do I.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We're going to let you go for now. As Sean said, give us a like. It's really kind of important. And comments, we'd love to hear them. Absolutely. Subscriptions, we'd love to have them. But most importantly, come on back. We got some good stuff coming your way. Bye for now.
Well,